So firstly, thank you to all the colleagues and people who have joined us in person today in this hall and also virtually. I would like to move on to session 2 with keynote speeches, and the first one I would like to call our distinguished keynote speaker, guest, Pakistani environmentalist and politician, Federal Minister and Advisor to Prime Minister of Pakistan for Climate Change, been a Vice President in International Union for Conservation of Nature. We welcome you, sir, for the keynote speech.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to, first of all, thank STPI for organizing this very important discussion on clean energy solutions and the clean energy pathway for Pakistan. And I would like to welcome all the participants to this meeting. I would like to say that Pakistan is a country which is really on the front lines of the climate change debate. We are one of the countries which is most affected by climate change. And we can see it all around us, even now, with this unprecedented heat wave that hit Pakistan for about 2 weeks. And now that is being followed by the melting of glaciers. I was up north just last week, where north of Hunza, one of the small glaciers had a burst, a glacial burst, and it was directly impacting the KKH. So these are the effects, which we are clearly facing day in, day out in Pakistan. And it is not because of our own emissions, it is because of somebody else's emissions. We are less than 1% of the global emissions even now, but we face the brunt of the impacts. And then these impacts also impact a very large population base in Pakistan. So 230 million people get affected when we talk about these climatic changes. We are also in the monsoon season right now, and there is already predictions of an unpredictable monsoon coming up. So I wanted to start off this talk with this in mind, that Pakistan is really on the front line of this issue. It is forced to adapt to this issue. It is forced to spend adaptation finance on this issue. A substantial amount of our GDP goes towards, developing the infrastructure, making it climate compatible, and also bearing the brunt of all these freak shifts which are occurring from the north to the south of Pakistan. But at the same time, Pakistan is also a country which is on the development pathway. We've had a very healthy development growth in our GDP this year, and we want to keep that going. But when we go on that pathway, what we are really cognizant of is that we don't want to be a country which is adding to the problem of climate change. We want to be a country which is adding to the solution of climate change as we develop further. And for that, we have done two things. One is that we have put our faith and our trust in nature-based solutions. So we are not only putting our faith, but also our money, our budgetary allocations towards nature-based solutions to climate change. So our 10 billion tree tsunami project, which is ongoing, is a nature-based solution to climate change. Also helps us in a lot of other benefits, including livelihoods, including green jobs, including addressing local pollution problems. But primarily it is a climate mitigation tool that Pakistan is using and investing in on its own. Our protected area initiative, which is expanding our protected areas, again is a nature-based solution to not only preserve and conserve our unique ecological heritage, but at the same time promote ecotourism and also become a sink for carbon mitigation. Our Recharge Pakistan initiative, which is just about to start, is basically trying to turn a crisis into an opportunity by using the flood waters that go through Pakistan every year, and which will keep on going as predicted by climate change, to divert them to restore our degraded wetlands and also recharge our groundwater aquifers. So these are all nature-based solutions. And as I said, Pakistan is not only talking about this, but we have put our budgetary allocations into this and focusing on, ecosystem restoration as a major tool towards preserving our own ecological heritage, but also primarily to equip us to adapt to climate change. On the other side, as I said, we are totally committed to be a part of the solution to climate change. And for that, the energy pathway that we choose from here onwards is going to be extremely critical. And we have decided as a government to go along the clean energy pathway. We have made a commitment to shift to clean renewable energy, 60% of our energy mix by 2030. A major portion of that is going to come through the hydro resources that we have in our country. Hydro development in Pakistan was almost at a standstill until our government came in and have pushed a number of big projects on hydro, which include 10 dams also, which are going to be producing hydro power for Pakistan in the future. We are also, pushing for solar power, which Pakistan is blessed with one of the very, very good solar radiation potentials across the country. And also wind power, our southern part in Pakistan has got a very important wind corridor, and we want to reap the full benefits of that wind corridor. Already we okayed 1100 megawatts of wind power in the southern part, I think in 2019, which was stuck up for the last 10 years. So those projects are now in the pipeline and will be producing power for us. So, our focus primarily is on going towards the clean energy pathway. Another part of this is cleaner transport, which not only affects climate change, but also, has a direct linkage with our local pollution problems. The smog in Lahore, for instance, 40% of that is attributed to transport pollution. So we are addressing that by a number of ways also. When we came into government, the fuel quality that we had was on Euro 2, and we have switched it over to Euro 5 in just one big jump. And today we are getting all the imported fuel that we are getting, which is almost 70% of our fuel, is on Euro 5 quality, as opposed to Euro 2, which was much more polluting. And also the carbon emissions go down with that. Secondly, we have focused on an electric vehicle transition. We are at the initial stages of that, but we have gone through by passing a policy, setting clear targets of switching 30% of our transport onto electric transport by 2030, and then getting the SROs and the notifications out to the cabinet. Even in the budget this year, the policy directives got translated into clear SROs for the promotion of electric vehicle technology. It is still a long way to that pathway, but we have, as I said, we have set the stage. We have set out the pathway with incentives, and we hope to be pushing that. Our ministry is overseeing the implementation committee for this transition to electric vehicles. So having said that, I think Pakistan remains committed towards a clean energy pathway. And we have also made a big announcement that we do not want to do any more projects on imported coal in Pakistan. We had set ourselves a direction in the previous government, which we thought was a really criminal direction. We've stopped that. We have made the announcement, and we are remain committed to not having any further imported coal projects in Pakistan. And for the local coal, which is available in Thar, we are trying to push for coal gasification or coal liquefaction projects, which are much less harmful than the other technology. But our prime priority is clean energy, pushing towards clean energy transition. We have, as I said, we're not just talking the talk, but also walking the talk. We had 2 projects under CPEC, which were financially signed off, one in Muzaffargarh and one in Rahim Khan, about 2,600 megawatts, which got shelved in our government. And we switched over to equivalent, I think more than that, 3,700 megawatts of hydropower development projects. again under CPEC. So even for the China-Pakistan economic corridor, we are pushing to make it the China-Pakistan green economic corridor by pushing towards clean energy, by pushing towards nature-based solutions under that umbrella of the CPEC also. So I think Pakistan, as I said, is committed, is totally showing a direction to be a part of the solution to climate change as the world moves forward to tackle this existential threat for the whole world. So I would like to thank this group for convening today, which is focused on this issue, and I will be looking forward to getting the recommendations from the group, which we can obviously take forward and which will strengthen our political resolve on clean energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Malik Amin Aslam, for such useful insights, and especially for Pakistan taking the giant leap for a green future through clean energy transition. Next, I would like to have a video message to be played.
Can I just get there's one thing that I thought that, because it's a very interesting group which is collected. One thing that countries like Pakistan, and I talked about this to the UK foreign minister who was here yesterday and be heading the COP26 negotiations. Countries like Pakistan who have already shown a commitment to clean energy, nature-based solutions, but who have got locked into long-term coal projects. For instance, Pakistan has got locked into certain projects which are 30-year gestation period, and there is a very, very high barrier to exit for countries like Pakistan. So if you want to switch off those plants, it's not that easy. I mean, you have to deal with the state guaranteed capacity payment agreements. So switching off from that requires going over a very high barrier to exit, which requires financing. So I think that is something, and there's already an idea being floated that for countries at the international level, that barrier to exit would be reduced, if not removed, through a financial mechanism which is being discussed. So I think that is a discussion which I would really like for this group to take, to have, and if there are some concrete recommendations, I will look forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for raising such an important point. And I think rightly said, when we are talking about clean energy transition in Pakistan and having these existing fossil fuel investments, having this locked for another 30 years, there needs to be specific transition policies and frameworks that could actually guide us. And of course, that is not possible without the financing that needs to ensure such transition and exiting from fossil fuel investments. So we'll definitely would like to pursue this this forward, and would like to do research, more research on it, and come up with concrete suggestions for the ministry to be proposed, let's say, in the Energy Transition Council of the COP26, and hopefully could support the government to take these recommendations forward. So thank you so much for your valuable time and for the tremendous remarks for today's session. Thank you so much. Moving on, I would like to invite Mr. Waqas bin Najib, Member Energy Ministry of Planning, Development and Special Initiatives. He's serving as a member at the Planning Commission. So he has actually sent us a video message, and just to have him introduced to the audience. He has over 20 years of experience in academia, research and industry in the energy sector of Pakistan. He formerly headed the planning and engineering at K Electric and worked on smart metering, automation, business process re-engineering, and change management at the utility. He has been involved in setting up renewable energy projects and other emission reduction projects in the region. We also, I would also take this liberty to highlight that he's an ex-alumni of STPI, and we are very fortunate to have him representing Pakistan on as a member energy this year. So the video message should be played just right now, and we are very thankful to him for his remarks.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, let me congratulate SDPI for arranging this Clean Energy Transition Summit. I think it's very important to have a continuous dialogue on the energy issues, especially clean energy issues, because they require, it's more than a technical decision. All stakeholders need to come together to ensure clean energy future for the country and for the planet, for that matter. I think most of the people in the summit would be aware of the current situation in the country. There's talk of overcapacity being installed. There is a capacity trap that we have gone in. And over the past many years, we have contracted expensive power for the country. So which means two things. I think going forward, we would need to focus on contracting affordable energy, and we would need to focus on a least cost optimum generation purchase plan that we need to make. I think the government is very aware of the situation, and in the past couple of years, we've worked on developing a national energy policy. National energy policy is a policy that will be, or that has already been approved by Council of Common Interests. And it's a consensus policy where all the provinces and the federal government have agreed on the future of national electricity plans. And I think without a doubt, renewable energies, clean energy holds a pivotal position in the national energy policy, not only solar or wind, but also hydro and run-of-the-river power generation. That's one of the mainstays of the future power procurement in the country, which is a very, very encouraging and good news. But since, as I said, if there is overcapacity, which means in the coming few years, there will be a slow addition of renewable energy projects, but they will be as per the need of the country, and they'll be on the least cost basis and at the right location. So the grid connected power generation that will come online through run of the river or solar or wind, these clean energy technologies, they will be slower in the next 2-3 years, but they'll pick up again once we need more power. And at that juncture, we are hopeful that we'll be contracting the cheapest and the most efficient power there is in the market. But we also have to remember that a large population in the country is not on the grid. So there's a large rural population where access to grid is a problem. Ensuring access to electricity is one of our targets as part of our sustainable development goals as well. So I think we also need to focus in the coming years on ensuring electricity supply and access to electricity to off-grid. And there are various initiatives that we've started working on. So there's a large project under design for people of Balochistan to ensure access to electricity through mini and microgrids and solar home systems. That plan is under design, and I'm hopeful that this year that design will be completed and we can start rolling out access to electricity based on solar technology in Balochistan. Similarly, there's also another program in design for agricultural tube wells, and migrating these tube wells to solar-based technology. That's also in the design phase, but I think that's a lot of work has gone into it. And I'm hopeful that sustainable design will come out of it so that we can not only ensure conversion to solar tube wells, but in that process, we will hopefully reduce line losses and theft in the particular areas where this project will be rolled out. Another initiative that we've recently started looking at is other off-grid possibilities where there are irrigation canals, probably using canals for solar installations and develop solar canals as part of our distributed generation. But the future of the grid is not a centralized grid. So distributed generation will play a part. And net metering has started over the past few years, and it has grown. So a lot of net metering customers are linked to the grid now. And we hope that that trend continues, and we'll continue to support net metering policies so that we have sufficient distributed generation within the urban areas as well, and also peri-urban where net metering customers mostly reside. So I think going forward, we will be, next 2-3 years, we'll be focusing more on off-grid. And as the power demand increases and we need more generation, we will be looking at very efficient clean energy technologies. I thank the conference organizers again, and I look forward to the recommendations of this summit. And I'm sure that we'll be informed better by the recommendations that come out of it. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful to hear about some of the great technology upgradation in agriculture sector and how the clean energy could be used to scale up the potential in the sector and along with the other initiatives. Moving on, we are really pleased to have Mr. Denny Kennedy, CEO of New Energy Nexus. He has joined us. Yeah, so welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. Just for an introduction, the New Energy Nexus is a global platform organization for funds and incubators. And Denny chairs a joint venture with the Third Derivative and the largest climate tech accelerator, and is also a managing director of California Green Energy Fund. He has been advisor to young green tech entrepreneurs in China with Asia Society, and also serves as president of CallCharge, a public-private partnership with the national labs, universities in California, and the company is working with advanced energy storage. So prior to being an investor, he has worked at Greenpeace and other NGOs on climate and energy issues for over 20 years. So we welcome you. We welcome you to be part of us in Pakistan, and we would be really pleased to hear your interventions today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? It's a pleasure to be beaming into Islamabad. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but thank you for having me. Thanks to the organizers at SDPI and all the previous information. I learned so much already sitting in on the sessions. I really just want to share a perspective from California, where we've been struggling with the energy transition since the turn of the century. We really had a very similar situation to the one that seems to be your fiscal trap, as it's been called in this previous session. We were being gamed and gouged by both coal and gas generation. You might remember the Enron scandal in US news and of public affairs. And the state of California decided in about 2000 and subsequent years to get off coal and to grow its renewables sector as an economic strategy to reduce dependence on foreign inputs from outside the state. When I say foreign, I mean Texas gas and other inputs, and to grow the domestic renewables supply. And that's been a huge success for the state of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. We now are well over a third wind and solar powered. And if you include the hydro as renewable and the geothermal that we have, more than 50% renewable. And on some days, 90%. Just earlier this year, we were 93% on a given day. So we're able to power a very large economy with a substantial population with renewables because of an intentional industrial strategy to get away from a similar fiscal trap that you're experiencing. And it's been a success of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's something that I know runs deep in Pakistan, and I think could be a really key part of the process. What I do at the California Clean Energy Fund and New Energy Nexus is invest in entrepreneurs. So we start up startups. Last year, we accelerated and funded over 200 companies around the world. We have teams in many cities in Asia, Africa, as well as America. And we back startups because we see the energy transition coming fast. And we would love to partner with Pakistan to do that. I mean, since last year's announcement of the Climate Ambition at the Climate Ambition Summit by Prime Minister Khan to not invest in any new coal power plants, we've been looking at Pakistan as an opportunity. That's obviously the right decision for Pakistan, as has been described in chapter and verse here at this session. The costs and the commitments and the stranded assets and the overcapacity and capacity market commitments that you're now locked into are a real hassle for the country going forward, and the obvious answers that have been presented to reverse the perverse subsidies to fossil fuels and to start to invest in clean energy could result in the same sort of trajectory we've been on in California for a couple of decades, but you could do it much faster because the costs now are so much lower. The true line is, as you've seen from the SDPI reports and graphs, renewables are cheaper by half than the coal price you're paying, and the gas price likewise. And that's true around the world. And that's why the IEA recently has capitulated and come around to the view that solar will be the king of electricity. It was 90% of all new additions to all grids everywhere last year, and will continue to grow in strength because it is the lowest cost. So it's great to hear from the previous speaker, the plans in the planning ministry to implement microgrids and solar canals, all sorts of innovations like that, which we're involved with at New Energy Nexus. We, like Pakistan, have massive irrigation canals across California in the Central Valley, and are also exploring ways to lid those with solar as a linear distributed generation asset to power the significant irrigation load in our electricity system. So there's plenty of things like that to do, and to avoid the need for the expensive fossil fuel imports that you'd be using otherwise. We've found in California that every time we've set a target for the addition of renewables to the system, initially it was a 5% renewable portfolio standard, and then a 25%, and then a 33%, and then a 50% law in 2015, and now a 100% law that was passed in 2018 and says that the state will be 100% renewable power and 100% decarbonized across all sectors of the economy, transport, industry, and agriculture, as well as electricity, by 2045. That's our law in California. Each time we've set one of those mandates, we've exceeded it by a number of years at lower cost than we've projected in any official forecast. And we've created thousands of jobs. And in fact, we've found that through converging the transition of energy systems in electricity and mobility by electrifying our vehicle fleets, we are having synergistic benefits. Jobs is the big one. Electric vehicles now in California constitute the largest export by value for the state of California, larger than the IT sector, larger than agriculture, larger than Hollywood. EVs, you all know about Tesla, but we've also got Proterra, Rivian, BYD, Skater, literally dozens of companies employing thousands and tens of thousands of people exporting high value, desired products to America and the world in the electric vehicle sector. But also those vehicles are batteries on wheels that are supplementing our grid. And as they grow in adoption, they become an asset to the grid management and the oversupply of renewables, which happens on some days, and are stored for later use. And we actually believe that with the modular addition of new generating capacity, particularly on rooftop, solar rooftop in the suburbs of San Francisco and Los Angeles and these cities in California, we will have a surplus of electricity to demand, but not an overcapacity in the way that the coal-fired power plants run it in the wrong time at the wrong cost, but rather just a generation of abundance and that abundance can be converted to other industrial applications later. So just want to encourage you on the path and tell you that, you know, a similar community on the other side of the Pacific and places around the world, Australia, and many others that have been dabbling in renewables have generally benefited enormously in terms of wealth creation and job creation in their communities, while also reducing their dependence on foreign fossil fuel sources, which Pakistan's stuck on, and reduced obviously their contribution to pollution and climate change. And we would stand ready to support in any way we could at New Energy Nexus with training of entrepreneurs, formation of teams and startup companies, funding them where we can with equity, debt, grants, and combining with whoever would take us forward in the energy transition, because it's such an exciting time to be doing the work in the 2020s, and we're confident that it will exceed your expectations as you drive forward like this. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Danny. I think great interventions, really insightful learning from your experience from the other part of the world, and making it as an experience and recommendations that could be taken for the Pakistan's way forward and transition. Moving on, I would like to invite our next speaker, who will be representing the CEO, AEDB, Mr. Shahjahan Mirza, who could not join us at the last minute due to the cabinet meeting. So I would like to invite Mr. Shiraz Ahmed Khan, Director Wind from AEDB, a qualified mechanical engineer, been working on the development of ARE projects in Pakistan, and also looking after the development of net metering systems in Pakistan, and under the alternative and renewable energy policy. So Mr. Shiraz, over to you.
Thank you very much. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to all of you. As we all are aware, and our Minister for Climate Change has just informed that the energy sector of Pakistan has greatly suffered because of the lack of proper planning and strategy. The main focus has always been on ad hoc capacity addition, largely ignoring the other important factors like improvement in generation mix, augmentation of indigenous supplies, and upscaling of transmission and distribution network, and also the institutional capacity building. Considering the existing energy mix of the country, the readjustment of the generation mix should be at the top priority. Being indigenous, cost-effective, and environmental friendly, the increased share of renewable energy in the overall generation mix will not only help us in achieving the energy security, but it will also help us in reducing the basket tariff of electricity and to meet the goal of Paris Climate Agreement and Sustainable Development Goal. A crucial element to decarbonize the economy and to meet the Sustainable Development Goal will be transitioning the energy sector dependence from fossil fuel to clean, green, renewable energies. AEDP, being the focal agency at federal level, is actively facilitating and promoting the development of renewable energy in the country. And at present, a total of around 38 projects making a cumulative capacity of 2,000 megawatt are under operation and supplying electricity to the national grid, whereas another 16 projects of 860 megawatt capacity are under construction, and it is expected that they would be commissioned by end of this year. And a part of large-scale IPPs projects, AEDP is also facilitating the deployment of renewable energy-based distributed generation like net metering. As of May 2021, a total of more than 10,000 net metering-based system have been installed, and their cumulative capacity is more than 220 megawatt. In order to further increase the share of renewable energy in the overall generation mix, the present government has recently announced a new ARE policy 2019, which is target oriented and sets a target of 20% of the generation mix through renewable energy by 2025 and 30% by 2030. Together with hydropower, we are looking at 60% share through clean energy by year 2030. The main feature of this new renewable energy policy is the shift from cost plus and upfront tariff towards competitive bidding. And the first step for competitive bidding is the category 3 projects. AEDP has already developed all the requisite documents to proceed ahead with carrying out the competitive bidding of category 3 projects, and the same will be carried out under the new ARE policy 2019. The new policy also allows the hybridization of existing wind power project with solar and new hybrid projects, which will not only increase the capacity utilization factors of the project, but will also help us in optimize the land utilization and grid utilization. Under the new policy, the government of Pakistan is forcing the participation of both national and international private sectors in different market segments, including independent power producers, energy service companies, net metering, business-to-business sale purchase of electricity, third-party sale purchase of electricity through wheeling, and other tested mechanism, international tested mechanism. Several schemes have already been designed by AEDP. A program for conversion of grid-operated tube well in Balochistan on solar energy is also being finalized. Further, the government also aims to promote development of solar-based micro-mini grids in off-grid and suburban areas with the involvement of the private sector. The government is also aware of the challenges in transitioning and converting to a cleaner energy mix, which include proper grid management through SCADA system and the timely availability of grid infrastructure and the central forecasting of wind and solar power projects. And we are hopeful that with the increased share of renewable energy in the overall generation mix, the government would be able to achieve its strategic objective of providing affordable and clean energy to all. This will also help us in achieving the sustainable economic growth in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shiraz. I think AEDB is the most important stakeholder in this for this forum, and thank you so much for taking time out and giving your interventions from AEDB side. With this, before we begin the next session, I would like to thank you to all the panelists and the speakers who joined us in the first introductory and the keynote speeches. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we are really thankful for your useful contributions and interventions to the forum, and we are definitely taking this collective effort forward and noting down the suggestions that could pave a way forward for the clean energy transition in Pakistan. We'll just take 4 minutes break before we begin the next session, just to stretch a bit and then move on to the panel discussions. Thank you.